This show is brought to you by the All Pro Nation Radio Network. Be sure to like and subscribe and check us out online at allpronation.com, where fans have a voice.
All right, what is up, everybody? You are tuned in to the All Pro Nation podcast. I'm your host, as always, Chris Smith. Got with me my good friend up in South Dakota, Tanner Weber. Tanner, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, Chris. How about you, bud?
I'm hanging in there. When life hands you lemons, you make lemonade, right?
That's right.
There we go. And special guest with us tonight. We have JR. JR, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Once again, thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. JR, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you on the Twitterverse and throughout the interwebs.
Yes, so you can find me at JReid Draft Scout on Twitter. That's JREID Draft Scout on Twitter. I also do work at climbingthepocket.com, just a self-start website that I've done along with three other counterparts. Just a website that we started up about 2 years ago, mainly Vikings content, but I handle the draft work over there. I also do work at Viking Territory, and that's vikingsterritory.com.
Cool deal. So y'all be sure go give JR a follow on Twitter. Go check out his work. We'll post those websites and that Twitter handle on the website at allpronation.com, so you will be able to find that out. All right. So tonight we're gonna continue our conversation on the NFL draft coming up here in a couple of weeks, and we got a couple questions lined up for JR. And so let's start off. JR, the Jets traded up to number 3. That was like the big thing that happened week before last. I think everybody's expecting that they're going to go quarterback. So what quarterback do you like at number 3?
Yeah, so first of all, I really liked the trade for the Jets and the Colts. I thought it was a great trade for both sides. And obviously the Jets are moving up for a quarterback. Now, it seems like they're okay with getting their second or third choice. Who I think that guy is. I think I really want it to be Baker Mayfield. Like, I want to see Broadway Baker so bad. I think he has the personality to fit that big media in New York. He has the charisma. He has the swagger to step in there and be able to handle it on and off the field. So I really hope it's for Baker Mayfield. But it seems like Josh Allen is kind of getting the steam for New York. I'm not a big Josh Allen fan right now. I think he can end up being a good quarterback, but I don't think he's the best of the bunch right now. But if I had to guess, I would say it's for Baker Mayfield because that's who I wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah. See.
Josh Allen is.
Go ahead.
He's one of those guys that has to go to the perfect situation, I think, for him to succeed in the NFL. I mean, he has all the tools. He's got the big arm, but if he goes to a team like the Browns, I think he's just going to falter.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think he needs to go to a situation, like you said, that has a proven veteran already in front of him. And the team that I've used for him, but obviously this isn't a realistic possibility because he'll go way before their pick. I love his fit in Pittsburgh, being able to sit behind Big Ben for maybe 2 or 3 years. And then maybe him being able to supplant him once Big Ben retires or decides to go elsewhere. So, obviously, the Steelers aren't a fit for him, but I think that's an ideal situation for Josh Allen.
Yeah,
I agree.
I guess I'm like one of the outliers. So I think Josh Allen is hands down the best quarterback out of this group. I think he's going number 1 overall. I think that's just my personal take. I think it's almost a 1A and 1B between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And I know I'm one of the few that are going to say that, but that's really what I believe. And so I kind of see Josh Rosen going to the Jets, and the way I kind of have it mocked out right now. But I think you're right. I think Baker Mayfield does kind of fit that New York charisma, if you will.
Yeah, JR, you're a big Jackson fan too, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jackson, but I don't think he's ready to play. right away because he has some stuff he needs to clean up. His accuracy probably is the biggest thing. He has some mechanics that he has to figure out as well. And, I mean, if he's forced to play right away, he's a guy that's going to experience a whole bunch of highs and lows. And what I mean by that is he's going to make a ton of highlight plays, but he's also going to make a whole bunch of what the hell was that throws as well. So I think he's a highlight factory waiting to happen, good and bad, if he does end up having to start early on.
Yeah, that'll happen with most rookie QBs. That was an interesting. I saw one of your retweets today. I can't remember who tweeted it out, but it actually looks like most QBs in this class, with the situations that they could go into, are going to end up sitting behind a starter for a year or two. I mean, Denver, New York, etc. But like that tweet said, these guys aren't going to get any better if they're not seeing the field. So
yeah, and that was a really interesting tweet, and it seems like the trend now is to sit guys for a year because of the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, and how he sat behind Brett Favre. But I think the best teacher is being on the field, and that's why I love the situation that Deshaun Watson was in and Mitchell Trubisky was in this year. Because I mean, yes, you can learn being behind a seasoned veteran or a proven veteran, but the best teacher is being able to go through that trial and error period on the field like Mitchell Trubisky did and Deshaun Watson did, and even Deshaun Kaiser, even though I thought he was in a horrible environment that didn't set him up to succeed. But the only way they're going to learn is to be out there on the field and make those mistakes.
Yeah,
repetition.
Let me throw this out at you as we kind of transition into another question. So when last week, me and Tanner did a mock draft. We mock draft the first round last week, and I have a theory that the New York Giants aren't going to be the ones picking at number 2. That I think the Buffalo Bills, since they have 2 picks in the first round, may package that up to move up to get a quarterback. Do you see that as maybe a possibility, or do you think the Giants are staying put at number 2?
No, it's actually a good theory because if you look at it, Dave Gettleman, who's the Giants GM, and Sean McDermott, who's the Bills head coach, they actually have a working relationship going back with the Panthers when Gettleman was the general manager there and McDermott was the defensive coordinator in Carolina. So they obviously have a working relationship. And, I mean, let's say Brandon Beane does call Dave Gettleman, they have that working relationship to where the Bills can trade up to that second spot. Now, it just depends on exactly what the Giants want to do. Are they willing to go back to 12 and sacrifice not getting one of those elite players like a Josh Rosen or a Saquon Barkley, because they're obviously not going to get that caliber of talent if they slide back to 12, which is the current Bills selection. So it's just a matter of if they're willing to sacrifice getting one of those guys for future draft picks. And it seems like the Giants right now are all in on Eli Manning and trying to get the most out of him for the next
for whatever reason.
Yeah, for whatever reason. I don't know if that's a smoke screen or not, but they seem like they're in win now mode. And I just have a hard time seeing them trade back for future picks because they want to get that instant impact guy. And that's why I think Saquon Barkley definitely is in play at number 2 overall.
Yeah, if that's the Giants' theory that they just want to win now and get everything they can out of Eli Manning, I mean, Saquon Barkley has to be the pick at number 2. I mean, there's no question. But then, of course, there's the wrench that was thrown in this past couple of days with Odell Beckham saying he's not playing unless he has a long-term deal. So that kind of throws a wrench in everything too.
Yeah, it definitely does. And, I mean, you're talking about an elite talent in Odell Beckham. And the worst thing you can do, especially if you're trying to get the most out of Eli Manning or squeeze that little bit left that he has in his career, is to trade that elite talent that does surround him. And that's what Odell Beckham has. Now, obviously, he has, some off-the-field stuff and on-the-field stuff that's going on with him. He has a really big personality. So it's just a matter of if they want to keep dealing with that or not. But I think the worst thing that they can do is get rid of Odell Beckham if they're trying to squeeze the life out of Eli Manning.
Yeah. So what big name player? So it's that time of year. Everybody who does anything that kind of covers sports, whether it's ESPN, CBS, Bleacher Report, all the different sports blogs all over the internet. Everybody right now is doing mock drafts, right? And for the most part, most mock drafts are pretty similar. You got a couple people who throw a few names around here and there, but for the most part, I'd say about 75%. A lot of these mock drafts have a lot of the same players in them. So with that being said, which big name player could you see actually dropping out of the first round?
I think the obvious one is Arden Key, the defensive end from LSU. He's a guy that was a top 10 pick coming into the year, and he had some off the field stuff going on with him. His dad came out and made some comments saying that, the limelight and the superstar mantra of being that high profile player in college kind of got to his head. His weight got a little inflated. I think he was up to 275 pounds, and you can see that early on in the year. His lower half was really thick. Took some time off, came back, showed some flashes of being that player that he once was. I know the Alabama game was really good. He looked like a top 10 pick in that game, but throughout the year, he was just a roller coaster. He was just up and down, up and down. And that's what you see on his tape. He's just very inconsistent. And then you combine that with the off-the-field stuff that's going on with him, and he didn't test overly well at the combine. So there's just a lot of red flags and a lot of questions about him. And a lot of people have compared him to Randy Gregory, and I don't think his off-the-field stuff is as bad as what Gregory's was. It's not as bad as Gregory's was, but, you see some similar things with him. Now, it's not as bad, like I said before, but you see some similar traits with him that make you question, obviously, his love for the game. Does he really love the game of football? And is he going to put his off-the-field stuff aside to play and be a professional athlete and be that high-caliber player that he's shown flashes of being in the past? So I think Arden Key is probably a guy that's probably going to slip to the second or even the third round, I think.
Yeah, I think
there's usually one player every single year that should go in the first round that ends up dropping.
Yeah, think about, what was it, 2-3 years ago, Lyle Collins, he was a first-round pick, and then he didn't even get drafted.
Yeah. His situation was totally different, though. He was dealing with the murder case.
Yeah, that's true. But,
But even like TJ Clemmings, I don't know. He never lived up to his hype, but even him coming out of college, there were people that were projecting him to be arguably a top 10 pick in the draft that he came out of, and the Vikings picked him in the 4th or 5th, was it?
Yeah, it was the 4th round. He was dealing with the foot situation. That was one of the reasons why he slipped so far. But injuries, and that's another thing that comes with Arden Key. He's had some injuries as well, so that just adds to the laundry list of concerns with him.
Yeah. My thing with Arden Key, you're spot on. That's the one player that I'd have to pick too, and he's going to drop. I think he's going to drop to probably the 3rd round, and whoever gets him in the 3rd round, they're going to get a steal of a player. Now, the question is how long. I personally, being in Louisiana, watching him and kind of being connected with LSU, I don't think it was ever not a love of the game with Arden Key, but just when in Louisiana we have two things. We have the Saints and we have LSU, right? And LSU is 9 out of 10 times the one thing people care about more. As many Saints fans as we have, they're probably more passionate about LSU than they are the Saints. And so being that, larger than life character on the field and being the star player at LSU, that's a big weight to carry. And, we've seen a lot of players fold under that weight. And so I'm interested to see where he goes. I think whoever's going to get him in the 3rd round is going to get a steal of a player.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think his tape is really good. And like I said, just go back and watch that Alabama game. He looked like a top 10 pick in that game. And I just think if you can get him to just control the off-the-field stuff that he has going on and just get him to focus on being an NFL player, I think you can get an elite type of prospect.
Yeah. So
one other player I'd like to worth noting, I think he'll probably drop out of the 1st round due to what came out at the combine. But Maurice Hurst, the D tackle out of Michigan, I don't know if teams are going to be sketched out by what doctors ended up finding. It came out that he was cleared now to return to football activities, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to drop him out of the 1st round. So that's one other player I could see dropping a bit.
Yeah, and I definitely could see that as well. And, I'm a guy that's very high on Maurice Hurst, but anytime you're talking about a heart situation, it's a very scary situation, especially when you're talking about investing a first-round pick in him. Now, we did see Star Latuile, who's now with the Buffalo Bills, end up being a first-round pick for the Panthers, I believe, in 2013. I believe it was. He ended up being the first-round pick. But then on the flip side of that, we talk about Nick Fairley, who was a first-round pick, and now he probably is going to be forced to retire because of a heart situation. So it's definitely a risk, whichever team that does end up deciding to draft Maurice Hurst.
Yeah. All right. So now on the flip side, so now there's now we're post combine. We're starting to have a lot of these private workouts and whatnot, and so now you got a lot of players that are kind of starting to work their way up that draft board. So what player could you see being drafted in the first round that right now nobody's really expecting?
I would say Lorenzo Carter, but he's kind of starting to get some steam here lately. Another guy,
picking up.
Yeah, and he tested really well at the combine, so he's caught some steam from that. Another guy that I've kind of been pushing this week, his name is Rasheem Green from USC. Only 20 years old, but he's 6'5", 275 pounds, and he ran a 4.7 at the combine. Stats weren't overly, impressive, but I mean, he's built like a Greek god. If you ever watch film on him, his body is, it's chiseled. It's amazing. And he has that Danielle Hunter type of build he's just extremely chiseled, has those elite traits, but his production wasn't that great. Very young, and a lot of people said if he would have stayed in college this season, in the 2019 draft, he probably would have been a top 10 pick. So he's really coming out a year early. Like I said, he's 20 years old, and he's a guy that's very raw, but he has that very high upside, and you probably won't see it until about 2 years from now because he's so raw. But if you get him with the right position coach that teaches him how to use his hands, that's his biggest trait that he's lacking right now. He doesn't really use his hands, and he relies mostly on his natural ability to defeat blockers. But if you teach him how to use his hands and improve some of those other tools that he has in the tool shed right now, I think you can get a high-end prospect about 2 years down the road.
Definitely. It could be very deadly.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be I'm going to kind of test your draft knowledge here. So who is somebody that we can see get drafted that's going to win what I'm going to call the Alvin Kamara Award? Or if you're a Kansas City fan, we can call it the Kareem Hunt Award. But, that player that's going to get drafted in the third, fourth round, no one's really talking about. But when we go back and look at this draft, we're going to say that was a steal of a pick. Who's looking like that's going to be them?
Does it have to be a skill position player? Or
No, it can be anybody. It can be anybody.
Let's go with Frank Ragnow, the center from Arkansas. I think he's going to be a steal. I think he's going to be a steal in the third round. Very productive career. Can play center or guard, and I think he's going to be a plug-and-play starter on somebody's offensive line for a very long time.
Okay.
I guess another name I'd like to throw out there that's not a skill position player is Austin Corbett, the guard from Nevada.
Yeah.
That's a guy that's just got a great work ethic. And he's really strong, and he's just a leader on and off the field, and I think his teammates respect him a lot, and I just think he could have a great impact on a team within his first few years of being in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Corbett. I'm a big fan of him.
I kind of want to move real quick. We've already talked a little bit about some of the quarterbacks. But if you could, I'd like for you to rank the top quarterbacks that we know are going to be going in the first round. Allen, Darnold, Rosen, Mayfield, and Jackson, and kind of rate them. From 1 to 5. Who do you think's the best, and then work your way down.
Okay, so I'll start from the top. Josh Rosen. He's my quarterback number 1 right now. I think if you were to look in a dictionary and see franchise quarterback or just quarterback in general, I think his picture would be right there beside it. He has everything you want in a franchise quarterback. His feet are always tied to his eyes, and that's what I love about him, his mechanics. throwing motion, and mental processing are very advanced. And that's what you notice about Josh Rosen. Now, his surroundings weren't great at UCLA, but he was able to still overcome that. And that's what you see a lot on his film. He's ready-made from day one. I think he's a guy. If his first NFL game was tomorrow, I think he could go out there and be just fine. That's how highly I think of Josh Rosen. He reminds me a lot of Matt Ryan. There's a lot of similar concerns that you had about Matt Ryan that you do with Josh Rosen. Decision-making can be a little poor at times. If you go back and look at Matt Ryan's stats, the year before he came out to the draft, I think he had a whole bunch of interceptions, and that's what you see with Josh Rosen as well.
Arm
He's
strength.
okay. Yeah. Above average arm strength. I mean, he's not going to throw the ball through a wall or anything like that, but he does have he has enough arm strength to be able to push the ball down the field and be effective in the short and intermediate areas of the field. Now, the one thing that he has a lot of mixed reviews on, obviously, is his demanding personality. And
I was just going to ask you about that.
It's not going to be for everyone that he encounters, because he's a guy that's not going to sugarcoat anything. He's an extreme extrovert and he's very outspoken, but a lot of people get it misconstrued because it just rubs them the wrong way. But what really is the deal with Josh Rosen is that he just wants to be the best player that he can be, and he constantly says that he loves to be challenged. And a lot of people just don't really realize that about him, that he wants to be challenged, and his personality rubs them the wrong way because it's so dominant.
Okay. So who do you have at number 2?
I have Baker Mayfield. He's
Okay.
my quarterback number 2. I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan. He needs to tame his antics a little bit. I think it's just the competitive nature in him, and it goes a little bit over the top. And, I mean, you guys know exactly what I mean, the crotch grabbing and, taunting the other teams at times. It goes a little bit overboard. And, I mean, I don't know whether he just needs to grow up or if it's just the competitive nature in him. But he needs to tame it a little bit, because he has
A little
to
bit of
realize
both.
that a little bit of both. I would say that. And he has to understand that he's going to be representing an NFL franchise now. He just can't go around doing that. But from an on-the-field perspective, I think he has it all. I don't think he was a product of Oklahoma's system, because, I mean, he put up record numbers in that system. And even when things went off script in their system, he was able to make plays time in and time out. He's highly accurate at all three levels of the field. Now, there is some concerns about his height, obviously, but, I mean, Oklahoma's offensive line averaged 6'5", 315 pounds. So
they had
he
some
was
big
able
boys.
to see over them. Yeah, he was able to see over them just fine, and I think he will be able to be just fine in the NFL. So I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan, and he's my quarterback too.
I did expect him to run a little bit better at the combine. I thought a 4.84 was kind of a poor time for him, but I mean, it was above average for most QBs in the class that we're in.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that.
All right. So moving on to number 3.
Sam Darnold. That's the next quarterback on the list. I'm a big fan of Sam Darnold. The biggest thing he needs to work on is his footwork and his body movements. And what I mean by that is he has a bad tendency of throwing one way, but his body will be facing the complete opposite direction. So he needs to clean up his body movements a bit and his ball security. He has a habit of fumbling a lot in the pocket, and that's something that can be coached out of him, because he keeps one hand on the ball a lot in the pocket. If he learns how to keep 2 hands on the ball in the pocket, I think that can clean up some of his ball security issues. And he has a little bit of Jameis Winston in him. And what I mean by that is he'll make a wow throw, and then he'll come back and he'll make just a boneheaded mistake that's unexplainable. And that's what you saw in the bowl game against Ohio State. I mean, he made a countless number of wild throws, and then he comes back and he throws the pick six, and you're like, man, what in the world was he looking at? So he needs to clean up some decision-making things. But I think he probably has the highest ceiling of any draft pick or any guy in this class, quarterback in this class. And I've compared him a lot to Tony Romo. He reminds me so much of Tony Romo, how he's able to move around and navigate within the pocket and keep plays and extend plays alive and be able to, just make those little dump-off passes, or just being able to consistently keep plays alive no matter what.
Okay.
Do you have any concerns about him transitioning in the NFL? I know USC ran a lot of like shotgun sets. Do you think that that'll be a tough transition for him taking snaps under center?
No, he looked fine doing it at his pro day. He looked completely comfortable. I think a guy like Mayfield will struggle with it because I think over 90% of their reps in at Oklahoma was from the shotgun. And, him being smaller, he might have a little bit of struggles doing it just because that's just a natural thing. He's a guy that's lower to the ground, so he might have some struggles initially dropping back from under center because he's never done it before. He's not taller as some of these guys in this class. Now, I'm not saying his height will be a question or anything like that, but it's just a natural thing going from under center and them having that natural ability of being able to see over the line of scrimmage because it's different standing from shotgun and looking at the field as opposed to being under center and dropping backwards and being able to see the field. So it's probably a bit of a concern with Mayfield, but I think Darnold would be just fine with doing it because he did it a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so that'll lead us into number 4.
Yeah, I have Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
You guys know I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. He's your ultimate boomer bust prospect. That seems like the common phrase a lot of people use. He getting a lot of Michael Vick comparisons, but I think he's a much better passer than Michael Vick ever was. So I compared him to Randall Cunningham. He reminds me a lot of Randall Cunningham.
That's interesting.
He reminds me a lot of a young Randall Cunningham. Now, the biggest thing Lamar needs to work on is his base. And you hear a lot of people say that is very narrow. And that's really true. He has a bad tendency of not stepping into his throws. And as a result of that, a lot of his balls are inaccurate. And you really don't know where they're going to go. He really struggles on outbreaking routes or throwing outside of the numbers. But he's really good at throwing the ball over the middle, especially deep. And I just think the biggest thing with Lamar is that he has to go to the perfect situation. And what I mean by that is he has to have an offensive coordinator that's going to tailor his offense to his strengths and not force him or mold him into something that he's not.
100%.
What team do you think will be ideal for Lamar Jackson?
I knew you were going to ask that, Chris.
Well, I don't want to be a homer or anything, but I think Minnesota would be a great fit for him. Now, obviously, Kirk Cousins is the quarterback there now, but before they did get Cousins, I thought Lamar Jackson is a guy that fits perfectly in John DeFilippo's system, especially with the RPOs, and that's really what he ran at Louisville. So Minnesota would be a good fit. I think New Orleans would be a good fit for him, and even New England, I think, would be a good fit for him as well.
Okay. And then, so I'm guessing number 5 is going to be my boy Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen. I think he's really your ultimate boomer bust prospect, and I think along with Sam Darnold, he's probably one of those guys that has the highest ceiling out of this draft class. And like I said, I could see him ended up being Christian Hackenberg, or I can see him ended up being Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler. Either end of the spectrum wouldn't surprise me at all. But I went with the comp of Jay Cutler. He's a guy that has that quick fire release like Jay Cutler had, and he plays on YOLO mode. That's what I like to say. He just doesn't care. Yeah. His decision making, you never know what he's going to do. But sometimes it can be a thing of beauty, and sometimes it can be like, man, what was he thinking there? Especially when he rolls out. He just loves to show off that arm. Now, the biggest thing Josh Allen needs to learn is that he needs to understand when to put touch on certain throws because he throws everything like a fastball. He's like, I compared him to Aroldis Chapman. Everything is a fastball with him. He doesn't really know when to put touch on certain throws, and that's what you see throughout his film. Now, his supporting cast wasn't great, and you see a lot of drop balls on his film, but he wasn't able to uplift that supporting cast. And a guy that's so highly rated, you kind of expect that of him, and that's why a lot of questions are surrounding him. But I think he's a guy that can be really good or he can end up being really bad, and that's why I think he's a boomer bust type of guy. Yeah,
he's got great size, and he ran a good 42 compared to most of the other QBs. A 4.75 is a real good time for a guy of his stature.
I agree.
Tanner, you got any questions for JR?
I think he hit it all. Oh, actually, the next question I did want to ask you, I saw you tweeted that out yesterday on Twitter. And I threw my 2 cents in there, but I got to ask you because I didn't see you list your own. But who are the 3 draft prospects in this class that you'd stand on the table and just you got to have them, got to have prospects you want on your team?
So the obvious one, and I'm sure you guys know this, is Isaiah Wynn. I'm a big fan of Isaiah Wynn. I love him. I mean, he dominated at left tackle in the SEC at Georgia. Every single game that he played in, he completely dominated. And being at the highest level of competition in college football in the SEC, that's really hard to do, especially at tackle with the competition that he's going against weekly. And then he went down at the Senior Bowl and just put on a clinic as well. In one-on-one drills and even in team drills, I mean, he just pitched a shutout every single time. Now, I think he's going to transition inside to guard in the NFL, but I wouldn't be scared at all to try him at tackle. I think he's that good, even though he's only 6'2", I believe, 305 in that area. So he would be a smaller tackle, but he's so agile, and I think he's a guy that can survive out on the island at left or right tackle. So I'm a big Isaiah Wynn fan. The next guy on the list will be Jair Alexander. I'm a huge Jair Alexander fan. He's my top-rated cornerback right now. He
I did not know that.
Year. Yeah, he's
you got him above Ward and Jackson now?
Yeah,
wow.
I do. I'm a big Jair Alexander fan, and he was hampered with some injuries last year. He only played in 5 games, and I just think he brings tremendous value not only at corner, but he also returns kicks and punts. So he's checking off those boxes of being not only a defensive back, but he's bringing value in special teams as well. The biggest concern with him, obviously, is his durability. He had a knee injury last year that sidelined him for 7 games, I believe it was. But when he's on the field, Louisville's defense just took it to a completely different level because now you have that shutdown corner out on the perimeter, and that's what Jair Alexander brought to Bobby Petrino's defense. The next guy on the list would be Michael Gallup, who's a receiver from Colorado State. He's actually my wide receiver 3 right now. He reminds me a lot of Nelson Aguilar from the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he's an even better version of him. Now, he doesn't have any dominating traits, but everything he does is just solid. He catches the ball really solid. His separation skills are really good. His route running skills are very good. He's not going to give you much after the catch, but he's a guy that can give you some after the catch. So I just think he's an overall solid wide receiver that doesn't have any dominating trait or anything that flashes over another, but he's a guy that just does everything very well.
Yeah. Right on.
Those are good. Alexander thing's interesting. I did not know that. But he is a great player. I'm just surprised you have him over Ward and Jackson, so you got to covet him quite a bit.
I've got him over Jackson, but I have him slightly below Ward. But it's
both of them are great players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they are.
All right, so I'm gonna let you pull out your fanboy hat for a little bit. So you're a Vikings fan. We're at pick 30. Who are you picking?
Or are they trading up? Is the 5th-year option that important to Spielman?
Yeah, it is. He's a big fan of the 5th-year option. Now, on the subject of the Vikings and what they should do at 30, they're in a position where they have a loaded roster. They really can afford to take the best player available on their board because their roster is so stacked at a lot of positions. But you bring in, you bring in an $84 million investment in Kirk Cousins. So the one thing that you need to do is protect that $84 million investment. So they have to find an offensive lineman at that spot. Now, it can be a guard, which I do prefer. I really hope they keep Mike Remmers out at right tackle because I think he provides much more value there than at guard. I highly value tackles over guard because we all seen in 2016 as Vikings fans how bad the season can go if you're bad at tackle. We saw it with Matt Khalil and TJ Clemmons out on the perimeter. So I think they need to find that guy at guard, whether that's Isaiah Wynn, Will Hernandez, even Connor Williams, or even a guy like Billy Price, if they're comfortable with taking him at that spot, even though he had the pec surgery. So I think they need to find a guard at that spot. My preferred guy obviously would be Isaiah Wynn, but I just don't see him falling that far. So the next guys on my list probably would be a guy like James Daniels, like I mentioned before, who I think can play guard. I think he fits their zone scheme and what John DeFilippo is trying to do really well. Now, he played guard his first year at Iowa, but he's played center since then. Now you're talking about him offering that versatility that they want at offensive line. So if I had to pick today, obviously it would be Isaiah Wynn, but that next guy on my list probably would be James Daniel because, I mean, he's so young. He's only 20 years old, and I love Billy Price, and I love the chemistry that he offers with Pat Elflein, but the pec injury does scare me, especially investing a first-round pick in a guy that's coming off a devastating injury, especially a pec injury, which is very important for offensive linemen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my first round mock, I had him taking Will Hernandez, just because I had Isaiah Wynn and James Daniels being gone before 30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, Will Hernandez would be a great pick as well. I think he's a guy that's ready-made and ready to start from day one. I mean, I call him – he's that guy you want if you're famous and you have a security guard, a bodyguard.
Yeah.
That's what Will Hernandez reminds me of. He's just completely nasty, man, and I've never seen him smile, not one time. This whole pre-draft process, I haven't seen him smile.
It's one of those dudes you meet at the door when you walk into a strip club.
Yeah, he's just at the front with the big security guard shirt on, and that's what I think when I see Will Hernandez. So I think Hernandez will be a great fit. Now, he doesn't have that versatility that you're looking for because he's strictly a guard, but, I mean, that's fine because that's a position of need for the Vikings now, now with Joe Berger retiring. So they need that guy that can come in and play right or left guard.
Okay, cool deal. So now I'm going to put my fanboy hat on, and I'm going to ask you, who do you think the Saints are going to pick at 27?
So don't be mad at me when I say this. I think the Saints are going to take a quarterback, and I think this guy is going to sneak in the first round.
Oh, Chris, it's coming.
I'm gonna go with Mason Rudolph.
No.
There's a lot of mixed reviews about Mason Rudolph, and if you ask 5 different people their opinion on him, it will be 5 different opinions based on him. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Mason Rudolph, but big media seems to be a really big fan of Mason Rudolph, and just don't be surprised if he goes somewhere in the first round. And I think the Saints pick at 27, and I think that definitely can be one of those picks.
He looks like a Blake Bortles clone to me.
Oh,
yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of him. The most common comparison for him is Bryce Petty.
Oh. Oh. God, JR, we're never inviting you on this podcast again. God. Okay.
We did our mock draft last week, and Chris had him taking Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's going to fall that far, but
I think somebody will trade up for him by then.
The Cardinals, there's a lot of teams. The Bills, there's a couple teams there that could probably trade up for him, but I do think Mason Rudolph is going to sneak into the end of the first round, and I do think that there are going to be 6 quarterbacks that end up going in the first round. I'm not sure Mason Rudolph will go to the Saints, but I could see even a team like Jacksonville take Mason Rudolph as well. So, yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
Because we know how much I love Blake Bortles. Okay. So, let me ask you this: is there anything as far as like the draft that we haven't asked you about that you really want to get out there? You really want to let the fans that are listening know about?
Yes, so I'm actually releasing my draft board this year. This is the first year that I've ever done it, and I'm only charging $5 for it. All the proceeds are going to go to the Rise for Hunger charity, which is a local charity here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's just something that I've been really wanting to do. It's just going to be a spreadsheet, and it has over 200 prospects on it, and it includes every prospect that I've scouted this year and my personal notes on them. So that'll be coming out April 9th, and I'll pin the tweet to my page with the link to the PayPal transaction and everything like that. So be on the lookout for that on April 9th.
Yeah, guys, those things are invaluable. So I have a couple people that I've bought their draft boards throughout the years on. So go to JR's Twitter page. Like I said, we're gonna put that in the description on allpronation.com. So check that out and do me a favor when you buy it. Reply to that tweet and said All Pro Nation sent them, so JR can know how many people, what my commission needs to be. Cool deal, JR. All right, so we're going to transition out of the draft. We're going to hit a little news and notes, and we had the final installment of the Bachelor NFL edition, and it came to an end this week. And the final rose went to the Los Angeles Rams. So
are you sad, Chris?
Terribly sad. But Ndamukong Suh has picked his team 1 year, $14 million. And look, guys, I got to say, it looks like the Rams are over there playing real life Madden. Like they're adding pieces, and it's like they don't give a crap about a salary cap. Apparently, they're not going to be over it, so there's that. And now there's even talk that they're looking at maybe trade for Odell Beckham Jr. What are you guys' thoughts on what the Rams are doing over there in LA?
I don't think that the Rams have the same coaching staff as the Eagles did a few years ago, but I'm not going to crown them kings of the offseason yet because we've seen superstar teams before in free agency. There's somebody every year that goes all out, and it ends up backfiring in their face because there's always communication and chemistry issues. And there's a lot of big-time personalities on that defense now with Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald, and Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, etc. So I'm just curious to see how they gel together. But from a talent standpoint, don't get me wrong. I mean, they have arguably one of the if not the best defense in the league. So,
oh no, this is the best defense in the league, and it could. I mean, if they gel, this could be borderline best defense we've ever seen in our lifetime.
Well, they got a lot of work to do at the linebacker spot yet. We'll see what happens in the draft, but I agree. They got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of personalities to juggle, though. So McVay, he definitely has a huge task on his hand. But I mean, he has the personality to do it. So it'll be interesting to see how it does turn out.
Do y'all follow Wade Phillips on Twitter?
Grandpa Phillips, yeah.
If you're not seriously, if you are not following Wade Phillips on Twitter, you are robbing yourself of some of the best comedy you can get. This dude owns Twitter. I mean, he is freaking great at it. So, oh god,
it's pretty entertaining.
He is hilarious. I love when I see a Wade Phillips tweet come on the timeline for sure. So what do y'all think about though the idea of possibly maybe trading their first round pick and bringing Odell Beckham Jr. over?
I don't think they can afford it.
They got $100 million in cap space next year.
Going into next year, you don't think that's going to hurt them going down the line in a couple of years? You got to think about the future.
Oh, no. I mean, they're going to have to pay Goff $20-something million here in a couple of years.
And then you got Aaron Donald's contract yet. And if they want to bring Suh back in the future.
When you got $100 million in cap space next year, you front load all those contracts. Make them team friendly at the end.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's possible, but I don't know. I don't think the Giants are going to trade OBJ. It just seems far fetched. It's kind of just a tossed around rumor right now. But
yeah,
there's a lot of time yet.
Yeah, I think their hard approach was kind of to get him to settle down a bit and scare him a little bit. I don't think they're going to trade him though.
Yeah. And then before I give Tanner the floor on news and notes, and we kind of talk about those things, I think the biggest thing that has come out this week is got to be, will there be a return of Johnny Football in the NFL? He visited New England. He supposedly had a couple more other visits set up for today. Do y'all think a team is actually going to give Johnny Manziel one more chance in the NFL?
I do. I think he'll get one more chance. I don't know if we'll see him get signed by anybody before the draft or even shortly after, but I do think he's going to get a camp invite by somebody. You can just tell in his interviews he's just more matured. He seems like he really cares. I mean, he's come out and said he'd play for free. I mean, he'd take a contract with no guaranteed money. He just wants to play football again. And he said if he's not going to play in the NFL, he'll go to the CFL and play. So I do think somebody will come out and give him a contract, just a small deal, prove yourself. I know before we hopped on Twitter here, I kind of looked at the possibility of the Seattle Seahawks. Trevon Boykin got cut today after his domestic assault case or dispute or whatever he's going through right now. They don't even have a backup quarterback in Seattle right now. So that would be a good situation for him if he wanted to go and kind of follow a good personality. Somebody like Russell Wilson, I think, would be somebody that could take him under his wing and show him the ropes. And I think he's a good fit in the Seattle offense as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
How about you, JR?
I definitely could see that. I think somebody's going to end up inviting him to training camp, to get a 1-year vet minimum prove it deal, and just to see how everything goes through training camp and preseason. I mean, because he hasn't stepped foot on the football field and played in the actual game since 2015. So, and a lot of things obviously changed in that time period, but I think somebody will give him another chance.
Yeah, right on. All right, Tanner, news, notes.
To be honest, I really don't have a whole lot this week. It's actually pretty short. There were a couple trades within the past week and a couple retirements. We'll start with the trades. The Giants traded defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul to the Buccaneers for a 3rd and 4th round pick. Defensive end has suddenly become a need for the Giants. Could we see them go Bradley Chubb maybe at number 2? Is that possible? Anybody? They are switching to a 3-4 scheme this year, too. That's worth noting. I did not know that until recently.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that either.
I think I read that a couple days ago.
Well, yeah, I think Chubb definitely is a possibility, and we've seen how Dave Gettleman does love building up the trenches. We saw that throughout his time in Carolina with the Panthers as well. So, I mean, Chubb wouldn't surprise me at all, but I think they need to go offense. Because I think they need to, if they're really serious about helping Eli Manning or trying to squeeze those final 2 to 3 years that he supposedly has left, according to their standards, I think they need to give him the most help possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was reported right after he was traded. It said the big JPP trade, as reported by Adam Schefter, is confirmed. It's a major move for the Giants. JPP was an odd fit in their new 3-4 scheme, so they wanted to see what they could get for him. So that makes a lot of sense. Another trade was the Cardinals traded their right tackle Jared Veldheer to the Broncos for a 6th round pick. I thought that was a good move for maybe not so much the Cardinals, but the Broncos had the cap space to bring him in, and I think that's a good move to protect Case Keenum. But Sam Bradford, I feel sorry for that guy. I don't know if he'll make it even one game next year. His offensive line is not very good right now.
Yeah, and I mean, they got to see Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh twice a year, too, so that doesn't help.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 retirements. Vikings guard Joe Berger has finally decided to retire after 13 seasons. And tight end Martellus Bennett has also decided to retire after 10 seasons. That's about all I got. They had the NFL owners meetings today. They had a couple new rule changes. Anybody want to talk about what a catch is?
Look, okay, so they took out the whole. We still have. You have to create a football move, whatever that bullshit means. So they didn't get rid of that. All they got rid of is the maintaining control all the way through to the ground or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Am I understanding that correctly?
I was actually trying to find the what the 3 rules were. I'm not finding anything right now, but
the helmet hit rule they worked on. They're trying to bring in a targeting rule like they have in college, and and then that's the only 2 I remember seeing is the catch and the targeting.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe
you'll have guys like Anderson Day who are going to suffer next year with the new tackling rule.
Definitely.
come flying in like a torpedo every time.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's really all I got. Oh, the catch rule is have control of the ball 2 feet down or another body part. And then the third step is you have to make a football move, reaching/extending for the goal line, or the ability to perform such an act. So
if this rule would have been in place, Dez would have caught him.
Yeah.
Cowboys fans are going to be so. I can't talk bad.
There were a
about
lot
Cowboys
of games
fans
last year
because they listen to us a lot. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Probably not so much anymore.
All right, cool deal. So I guess that's going to wrap us up. We kind of went through that a little bit quicker than I thought. JR, thank you again, man, for being here with us. We're definitely going to want to have you back on the podcast. Maybe a post-draft show. You can kind of help us break it all down. Go ahead, tell everybody where they can find you again on Twitter and the internet.
Yeah, you can follow me at JReid Draft Scout. That's JREID Draft Scout on Twitter. And I also write for climbingthepocket.com and also at vikingsterritory.com.
Cool deal. So, like I said, we're going to have that in the description on All Pro Nation. Y'all go check JR out. JR, thank you so much, bro, for being here with us. So for Tanner, for Chris, be sure to follow Tanner at @purple_post. You can follow me at 318 Chris Smith. And then be sure, if you're not doing so already, that you're following the All Pro Nation Twitter and Facebook page at All Pro Nation, and on both Facebook and Twitter. And I think that's it. Oh, if you did the, is anybody going to from All Pro Nation do the March Madness bracket? Do we have any submissions for that?
I didn't do too bad. I almost had 3 teams in the Final Four, but do get beat, so
yeah.
I'm sitting with 2. I got Nova and Michigan I'm relying on.
Okay. All right. So if you signed up for that and you want to know how you're doing, you can shoot Tanner a message on the Twitters. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Till then, peace.